stop. Before you chase another promise, before you whisper another wish into the dark, before you convince yourself that thinking alone will change your life, listen carefully. You have been told that if you believe hard enough, if you visualize long enough, if you feel it as real, your fortune will arrive. And perhaps you tried. You pictured the house. You imagined the bank account. You saw the applause. Yet nothing moved. And you began to wonder if the fault was yours. Here is the forbidden truth. There is a step missing in nearly every so-called success story you have heard. A step so simple, so practical, so demanding that most men skip it entirely. They speak of faith, but omit obedience. They preach belief, but conceal discipline. They tell you the miracle. They hide the method. You have listened to stories where a man imagined wealth and wealth appeared. But what you were not told is what he wrote down in private, what decision he made that very hour, what price he resolved to pay without retreat. You were shown the harvest. You were never shown the plowing. And so you drift. Another year passes. Another resolution fades. Another promise to yourself dissolves before the ink dries. You begin to doubt not the method, but your own power. But what if the power was never missing? What if you were never incapable, only incomplete? Imagine this. It is early morning. The house is quiet. Bills sit folded on the kitchen table. You tell yourself, one day this will change. You close your eyes and picture abundance. For a moment, you feel strong. Then the day begins, and you move as you always have. That is the missing step. Desire without a definite command is vapor. Faith without a written decree is weak. Repetition without action is self-deception. The law responds not to wishing, but to definiteness backed by decision. The world does not bend to vague hope. It yields to the man who writes his aim, fixes it in his mind, repeats it until it governs his thoughts, and then organizes every hour around it. You were taught to manifest, but you were not taught to commit. And commitment is the dividing line between the drifter and the master. Do you know why so many men say, "It didn't work for me"? Because they entertained the idea. They did not marry it. They flirted with purpose. They did not stake their identity upon it. They wanted results without transformation. Listen closely. The missing step is not mystical. It is moral. It is the moment you say, "I will accept no alternative." It is the hour you burn the bridge of retreat and make your desire so definite that even your subconscious has no choice but to act. Without that step, belief becomes fantasy. With that step, belief becomes command. Look at the men who rose from nothing, Carnegie, Ford, Edison. Do you think they merely imagined success and waited? No, they defined it in writing. They spoke it daily. They organized plans. They persisted through ridicule. They paid the price before the reward appeared. They did not hope. They decided. And here is the cost of ignoring this. Another 365 days exactly like the last. More quiet frustration. More half-finished goals. More explaining to yourself why next year will be different. Ignore this, and you will repeat the year. But if you grasp what I'm about to reveal, if you listen as though your future is watching, you will discover the missing step that turns thought into power. It is not louder affirmation. It is not longer visualization. It is not waiting for better conditions. It is a deliberate act that locks desire into law. Before this message ends, you will see clearly what has been absent from your efforts. You will recognize the gap between wishing and commanding. And once you see it, you will never again tolerate vague ambition. So steady your attention. Set aside every distraction. Listen not for inspiration, but for instruction. Because the difference between those who dream of riches and those who command them is one missing step. And when you take it, the world will no longer ignore you. Most men do not fail because they lack imagination. They fail because they never transform imagination into authority. They picture success. They rehearse prosperity in thought. They indulge in pleasant scenes of applause and security. Yet when the moment arrives to govern their conduct according to those scenes, they retreat into familiar habits. The world has encouraged you to believe more intensely. It has told you to repeat pleasing words and to hold images in your mind. But it has neglected to explain the difference between entertaining a thought and commanding yourself with it. There is a wide gulf between wishing and issuing a decree. A wish is tentative. A decree is final. A wish says, "It would be pleasant if this occurred." A decree says, "This shall occur," and I bind myself to its realization. Your subconscious mind is not moved by casual preference. It responds to definiteness expressed with authority. When you merely hope, it remains neutral. When you command, it begins to marshal its forces. Observe the difference in posture between the two men. The first man speaks of success as possibility. His tone rises and falls with mood. He says, "I believe something good will happen." His friends nod politely. They sense optimism, but not power. The second man speaks of success as obligation. He says, "I will accomplish this by such a date." His tone is measured. His eyes are steady. There is no boastfulness in him, but there is firmness. Those who hear him feel something different. They feel gravity. That gravity is born of internal command. Edwin C. Barnes did not merely imagine himself associated with Thomas Edison. He did not say, "Perhaps one day I shall find an opportunity." He said, in effect, "I will become his associate." He had no visible advantage. He possessed no position. Yet he carried within him the authority of decision. When Barnes arrived at Edison's office, he did not appear as a drifter. Though his clothing suggested modest means, his bearing suggested certainty. Edison later remarked that he could see in the young man's face a determination that would not yield. That determination was not a pleasant feeling, it was a command. Here is the truth few speak plainly. Belief without decision is sentiment. Decision transforms belief into law. Many men recite affirmations without committing their identity to them. They say, "I am prosperous," yet they conduct themselves as though prosperity were optional. They say, "I am confident," yet they postpone action at the first sign of discomfort. Your subconscious mind observes your conduct more closely than your words. If your actions contradict your statements, the subconscious accepts the conduct as truth. Thus, repetition without resolve becomes self-deception. The missing step is the moment you cease to treat your desire as entertainment and begin to treat it as command. Command requires cost. When you issue a decree to yourself, you restrict your behavior. You eliminate alternatives. You accept responsibility for compliance. This is why many avoid it. It removes the comfort of flexibility. But flexibility without direction is drift. You have perhaps experienced the following scene. Early morning, the house is quiet. You feel a stirring of ambition. You close your eyes and picture abundance. For a moment, your heart quickens. You rise with enthusiasm. Then the day begins. Small distractions intrude. Familiar routines resume. By evening, the image has faded. Nothing in your conduct reflected the morning's intention. The desire was present. The command was absent. A command alters conduct immediately. When a general issues orders, he does not hope the army will advance. He declares it. The soldiers adjust their movements accordingly. The command shapes action. Your mind operates by similar law. When you say, "I will do this," and you mean it without reservation, your mind begins to adjust your thoughts, your associations, and your habits to align with that declaration. If, however, you say, "I would like to," your mind remains at ease. Henry Ford did not entertain the thought of building a practical motor car as a pleasant possibility. He bound himself to it. When engineers declared the V8 engine impossible, he did not retreat into speculation. He said, "Produce it." That instruction was not casual. It was final. His associates sensed that retreat was not an option. The authority of his command altered the conduct of those around him. This is another consequence of issuing a decree. Others respond to it. When you speak tentatively, others treat your aim as optional. When you speak with quiet authority, others adjust their expectations. They begin to regard you as serious. They measure their responses accordingly. Confidence is often mistaken for charm or eloquence. In truth, it is consistency between declaration and conduct. When you issue a command to yourself and obey it, your tone changes. Your gestures become economical. You no longer over-explain your purpose. You simply move toward it. People notice. They may not understand the cause, but they detect the effect. They begin to trust you with greater responsibility. They sense that you are governed by principle rather than impulse. This transformation begins in silence. It begins when you close the door, sit with pen and paper and say, "I hereby bind myself to this result. I accept the price. I eliminate retreat. That moment is not dramatic. No applause accompanies it. Yet it is the dividing line between drifter and master. Let this affirmation mark that dividing line. My desire is not a passing wish. It is my command to myself. I govern my conduct by it. I accept no alternative. Repeat it until it no longer feels optional. You may fear that such finality is dangerous. You may ask, what if I fail? That question reveals the very reason command is necessary. If failure remains your primary contemplation, your subconscious will never fully mobilize. When retreat is comfortable, effort is partial. A man once told me he wished to increase his income. I asked whether he had decided upon a definite sum and date. He had not. I asked whether he had committed himself publicly or privately. He had not. He had entertained improvement, but he had not commanded it. Years passed. His income fluctuated slightly, but his position remained unchanged. Another man in similar circumstance wrote a specific figure. He fixed a date. He declared to himself that he would render greater service until that figure was attained. He felt fear, yet he obeyed his declaration daily. Within 2 years, his standing altered completely. The difference was not talent, it was authority. You may possess more knowledge than you are using. You may possess more imagination than you have exercised. But until you command yourself, those faculties remain dormant. Belief becomes power only when it governs behavior. This is the missing step in every tale of so-called manifestation. The storytellers describe the vision. They celebrate the reward. They seldom describe the hour in which the man said, I will accept no substitute. Without that hour, the vision remains vapor. With that hour, the vision becomes instruction. If you would prevent another year from dissolving into pleasant intention, begin here. Do not seek louder affirmation. Seek deeper decision. Issue the decree, bind yourself. And watch how your conduct and the world's response begin to change. There is a moment in every genuine success story that is never shown to the public. It is not the applause, it is not the reward, it is not the handshake of congratulation. It is the quiet hour when a man sits alone and writes a covenant with himself. Most men whisper their ambitions. They speak of them lightly. They discuss them at the table. They mention them among friends, but they do not formalize them. They do not bind them in ink. They do not transform them into obligation. The difference between conversation and covenant is the difference between drift and direction. A conversation entertains. A covenant commits. When you write your purpose in clear, definite language, you create a contract between your present self and your future achievement. That document becomes a point of return. It becomes evidence of your seriousness. It becomes a mirror that reflects whether you are living according to your declared standard. Without this covenant, desire remains adjustable. A man may say today, I intend to prosper. Tomorrow he may say, circumstances are difficult. Without written declaration, he can alter his intention without feeling the weight of contradiction. But when a man writes, I shall earn this definite sum by this definite date in return for this definite service, and signs his name beneath it, he introduces gravity into his life. Gravity is necessary. The subconscious mind does not respond to vague longing. It responds to clear instruction repeated with emotion and belief. Writing crystallizes instruction. It removes ambiguity. It forces thought to become exact. Many avoid writing because writing exposes uncertainty. To write a definite sum requires courage. To write a definite date requires commitment. To write the service you will render requires honesty. It is easier to say, one day I shall succeed, than to write, by the first day of January I shall possess this definite result. Yet only the latter awakens organized thought. Dr. Frank Gunsaulus did not merely feel inspired to found a school. He fixed in his mind the exact sum required. He determined the nature of the institution. He resolved to secure the capital. When he delivered his address, he spoke not from vague aspiration, but from defined purpose. Philip Armour sensed that definiteness. He did not respond to a dream. He responded to a covenant already formed in the mind of the speaker. This is how unseen preparation precedes visible opportunity. You must write what others only whisper. Write not for display. Write not to impress. Write for discipline. State clearly what you intend to accomplish. State clearly what you will give in return. State clearly the time within which you shall do it. Then read this covenant aloud each morning and each evening. Do not read it mechanically. Read it with conviction. Imagine yourself already in possession of its fulfillment. Allow emotion to accompany the words. Emotion strengthens impression. Impression guides conduct. When repeated daily, your written covenant penetrates the subconscious mind. It begins to influence your decisions quietly. It alters what you notice. It directs your associations. It reshapes your habits. The change will not feel mystical. It will feel practical. You will begin to decline invitations that do not serve your aim. You will allocate time differently. You will seek counsel from those aligned with your purpose. Others will sense the change. They will remark that you appear focused. They will say you have become serious. They will observe that you no longer entertain idle speculation. The covenant gives you identity. Without identity, you are influenced by circumstance. With identity, you influence circumstance. Henry Ford's identity was not built in public announcement. It was built in private resolution. Before others saw the motor car, he had already seen it. Before capital was secured, he had already committed himself to its production. That commitment governed his conduct long before reward appeared. You must understand this clearly. The written covenant is not for memory. It is for transformation. Memory recalls, covenant compels. When you read your statement daily, you create repetition. Repetition builds belief. Belief influences action. Action produces result. But if you fail to write, repetition becomes inconsistent. Your aim shifts with mood. One day you imagine prosperity. The next you dwell on limitation. The subconscious receives mixed commands and remains uncertain. Clarity is mercy to the mind. Write in simple language. Avoid flourish. Avoid exaggeration. Use words that admit no confusion. For example, I shall possess a definite income of this amount by this date. I shall give service of superior quality in this field. I shall devote specific hours daily to its attainment. I shall persist until success is achieved. Such language leaves little room for retreat. Sign your name beneath it. That signature is symbolic, but powerful. It represents ownership. It declares that you accept responsibility. A man who operates from written covenant walks differently. He no longer waits for favorable condition. He creates it. He no longer says, if fortune smiles. He says, I shall prepare until fortune must respond. Observers interpret this as confidence. In truth, it is discipline. There will be mornings when your covenant feels heavy. You may question your ability. Continue reading. Continue obeying. The weight will transform into strength. There will be evenings when temporary defeat attempts to weaken resolve. Read again. Remember that your covenant was not written for ease, but for advancement. Let this affirmation strengthen your practice. I have written my covenant. I live by it daily. I give in service before I receive reward. I persist beyond discouragement. Speak it. Then act accordingly. Most men abandon their aims because they were never formalized. They spoke of improvement as though it were optional. When difficulty appeared, they withdrew without inner conflict. But when you possess written declaration, retreat creates tension. That tension becomes ally. It reminds you that you have pledged yourself. Pledge is the missing ingredient in every tale of so-called effortless success. Those who appear fortunate once sat alone and bound themselves to a course. They were not carried by imagination alone. They were driven by covenant. If you would prevent another year from dissolving into half-hearted attempts, begin with ink. The house may be quiet, the table may be simple, the hour may seem ordinary. Yet when you write your covenant and sign it, you cross an invisible threshold. From that moment, you are no longer entertaining desire, you are governed by it, and governance is the foundation of power. There is a stage beyond writing, beyond repetition, beyond even belief. It is the moment when a man quietly removes his avenue of retreat. Until that moment arrives, his effort remains divided. He may say he desires success, yet part of his mind prepares an excuse for surrender. The subconscious mind detects division instantly. If you write a covenant, but secretly preserve comfort in failure, you weaken the force of your own declaration. You may not admit this division aloud. yet it exists in subtle form. It appears as the thought, "If this proves too difficult, I shall turn elsewhere." So long as that thought remains, your mind withholds full cooperation. The missing step in most stories of achievement is this moral act of finality, the quiet burning of retreat. This does not mean recklessness. It does not mean abandoning prudence. It means eliminating the mental habit of preparing defeat as a refuge. Henry Ford did not say to his engineers, "Attempt the V8 motor, and if it cannot be done, we shall abandon the effort." He instructed them to produce it. The order implied that retreat was not under consideration. His certainty altered their behavior. When retreat is denied, ingenuity awakens. The same principle operates within your own mind. When you leave yourself comfortable alternatives, your imagination remains casual. When you eliminate alternatives, imagination becomes inventive. Consider the little girl in the lesson of the 50 cents. She was sent to collect a small debt. When the man refused her, she did not turn away. She stood quietly, firmly, until he relented. She did not possess physical power. She possessed decision. Her refusal to retreat compelled response. Most men surrender at the first refusal because they have rehearsed surrender privately. They expect resistance. They prepare explanation. To burn retreat is to say, "This aim shall be realized, and I shall adapt until it is." Notice the language. Adaptation is not abandonment. It is intelligent persistence. There is a vast difference between altering method and abandoning purpose. The first is wisdom. The second is weakness disguised as flexibility. A man once told me he intended to build a successful enterprise. He wrote his covenant. He repeated it daily. Yet when the first plan failed to produce immediate gain, he altered his aim entirely. Within a year, he had changed direction 3 times. He did not lack enthusiasm. He lacked finality. Contrast him with another who declared, "I shall succeed in this field." When obstacles arose, he revised strategy, sought counsel, worked longer hours, and endured criticism. He did not revise his identity. Others began to sense his steadiness. There is something unmistakable about a man who has removed retreat. His speech carries quiet conviction. He does not argue loudly. He does not persuade aggressively. He simply proceeds. Observers feel that he cannot easily be diverted. This impression is not accidental. It is the result of internal decision so firm that doubt has been expelled. Let this affirmation guide your thinking. I accept no retreat. I alter my method, but not my purpose. I move forward only. Speak it when temptation suggests withdrawal. You may fear that such determination invites risk. In truth, divided determination invites greater risk. A man who alternates between effort and retreat wastes energy. He never accumulates momentum. His years pass in repetition of beginnings. The burning of retreat compresses time. When your mind understands that failure is not refuge, it begins to search more diligently for solution. It notices opportunity where before it saw obstacle. It attracts assistance because others recognize seriousness. Andrew Carnegie did not build his empire by entertaining alternatives. He selected steel as his vehicle and concentrated upon it. When difficulty arose, he did not seek another industry. He strengthened his position. His associates understood that he would not abandon the field lightly. That understanding increased their confidence. When you remove retreat from your own mind, your bearing alters. You become less anxious about temporary setback. You interpret criticism as challenge rather than verdict. You stop measuring progress by comfort. Comfort is often enemy of greatness. The missing step in so-called manifestation stories is this moral courage to stake identity upon an aim. Many imagine prosperity. Few stake reputation upon it. When you speak your aim publicly with moderation and then conduct yourself in harmony with it, you introduce accountability. Your word becomes bond. That bond strengthens persistence. But caution is required. Do not proclaim your aim to those who ridicule effort. Choose wisely those before whom you speak. Ridicule can weaken the unseasoned mind. Therefore, first secure your decision privately. Then, when firmness has grown, allow your conduct to reveal your purpose. You will discover that burning retreat does not feel dramatic. It feels calm. There is no excitement in finality. There is steadiness. The man who has removed retreat sleeps more peacefully than the man who hesitates. Why? Because hesitation consumes energy. Decision conserves it. If you wish to prevent another year of repetition, examine your thoughts carefully. Do you still reserve the option of abandoning your covenant? Do you tell yourself that you will try for a season and then reconsider? Such thinking weakens power. Instead, declare inwardly, I shall continue until success is achieved. Time may test me. Circumstance may delay me, but I shall not withdraw. That declaration, repeated and obeyed, becomes force. Others will sense it. They may not articulate it clearly, yet they will say, he is determined. They will entrust you with greater responsibility. They will offer cooperation. They will respect your steadiness. And respect is a form of capital. The missing step is not louder belief, it is removal of retreat. When retreat is gone, imagination intensifies. Faith strengthens. Discipline becomes natural. Another year will not slip quietly past a man who has burned his bridges behind him. He advances because he must, not from desperation, from decision. There is a final illusion that must be destroyed. Many men believe that once they have written their covenant and removed retreat from their minds, results will begin to gather of their own accord. They forget that a decree without obedience to time is a proclamation without soldiers. The missing step expresses itself in the ordering of hours. It is one thing to decide. It is another to rearrange the structure of one's day so that the decision governs it. The day reveals the truth of your covenant. The hours expose whether your command is genuine or ceremonial. A man may speak of prosperity with conviction, yet if his hours remain undirected, his desire remains ornamental. The world does not yield to sentiment. It yields to organized action repeated with indefinite periods. When you wrote your covenant, you established a destination. When you burned retreat, you established direction. Now you must establish daily obedience. Each aim requires specific acts, not general effort, not vague industry, specific acts performed at specific times. You must decide in advance what you shall do each day that advances your purpose. Then you must assign those acts to fixed hours. These hours must not be negotiable with mood. Mood is a poor commander. If your aim is to increase